Hey guys, and welcome to Facebook. Today I am here with my good friend, Mr. Paul Santucci.
Hello.
And I thought today would be an awesome day to discuss the different routes that both of us have chosen to do. So first I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Rebecca Meyer, and you might be familiar with my YouTube channel, Rebecca Meyer 2. Paul, I'm going to take it over to you.
Sure. My name is Paul Santucci. I'm up here in Boston. I apologize for being outside if it's a little noisy, but we don't get the good weather that Rebecca does, so I have to take advantage of that. So I'm able to be outside right now. So Rebecca and I met, I would say, about 8 months ago when we all started going through this. So that's how the relationship started, and I'm happy to be here and talk to you guys about my journey.
And just a quick disclaimer, Paul and I are just two people going through similar issues, probably similar issues as you are going through yourself. By all means, make sure you give a shout out to us and let us know you're here. We're here to answer your questions about the different routes that we've gone through.
And we are not doctors.
And we are not doctors, and we are not in the medical field whatsoever. We are just normal human people. So like Paul was saying, we met in one of our herniated disc groups, and that group by far was one of the most helpful things to get me through this difficult journey that I've been going through. And thank God to have people out there, because honestly, I don't think there's anyone that can possibly understand what you're going through unless you've actually gone through it yourself. Wouldn't you agree, Paul?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And in the beginning, when anyone goes through this, you want answers, and a lot of it's a mystery, and I had no idea. This is something I didn't even hear of when I thought of people with back problems. I said, oh, that's for old people. I don't know what this is. I heard a herniated disc. I heard of sciatica. I pictured an old man hunched over. So in the beginning, it's so confusing, and the route that people take is so different, and people react so differently that it can get overwhelming in the beginning. When you start miring through what information is out there and what's going to suit you best, I think the forums are great for that. Sometimes it feels like information overload. Sometimes it feels just perfect, and it's great to have a bunch of opinions and people who have gone through it. So yeah, it was absolutely 100% helpful to me to kind of understand what other people are going through, and of course get support too.
I just want to give a shout out to everyone who's just joined us. Please forgive me if I mispronounce your names. We are all from all over the world, and it's really fantastic that we can join each other today and just have a nice little discussion. So Ravula, thank you so much for stopping by. I really, really do appreciate it. So as far as Paul, I was just wondering, now, how did everything begin for you? What caused your injury?
Well, if I was going to backtrack to November 2017, so just before Thanksgiving, it was a night. I play a lot of hockey, so I coach hockey, and hockey in the wintertime is my main sport. I do a lot of other things. I do P90X, did P90X, and running and things like that. So I have always been like a 5 to 7 day workout guy. And what really caused it was, I remember the night I was sitting at the dinner table with my family, and my wife turned to me and said, are you really going to play hockey again? Hasn't been a lot this week. Haven't you done so much? And I was tired, and I was a little stressed out. And I also felt a little guilty as I was going to the rink. And then as I was going to the rink, funny thing happened. I said to myself, man, I hope my back doesn't get hurt tonight, because it really feels weird. And I think it had a lot to do with the stress and the things I was going through. Well,
and not to interrupt you, but that's the thing. You start like noticing yourself a little bit more, like when something's just off a little bit. So yeah, go ahead, continue.
No, and I played the game, and then I don't think it was something that I did anything out of the ordinary. I got a check or anything like that, but my body just, ooh, that hurts. And then of course I'm the, well, let's play through it, rub some dirt on it kind of guy, and that's what I did. And then by the time I got to the locker room, I couldn't take off my skates. My back was destroyed, and then I basically crawled home after driving home. So that was pretty much the first incident. And then I went to the doctor right after that, and he said, yeah, it looks like you have sciatica. You could have a herniated disc. Here are some exercises. Here's some cobra stretching. Here's some oxy. Here,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
probably
yeah.
doing an MRI. Here's your X-ray, and the X-ray shows absolutely nothing.
So for me, I can't honestly say that there was one thing that caused this thing to occur. I have worked standing up at my job for over 13 years. I was also very active in Zumba, which is dancing, but a lot of jumping. And I think just the combination. So I can't actually say that it was like one moment or one time. I think it was just a succession of things. And for me, I think, you know, if I could turn it back in time, I wish that I had worked on my core more than anything. I was so concerned with, you know, losing calories and just doing like high speed energy kind of stuff, that if I could turn it back in time, I would certainly try to work on my core just a touch.
Yeah, it's amazing because when I work out so much, and you think you're doing so much for your body and burning calories. And I felt like with hockey and all the other things that I was working on my core. But in fact, when I think of the things I was not only ignoring, like my core, but the bad habits I was having of how I was tying my skates, or how I was lifting when I was working out, how I was actually lifting the weights to do an exercise.
Exactly. It's so important.
So counterintuitive type things that you don't think about until this happens. So, and I think it's part of the culture that we're in, that, you know, when you work out and you get into it, and you know, especially when you're a man and you're into, you know.
Right, right. I see Ravilo would just mentioned in the comments that he had gotten hurt at the gym doing a leg press, and that goes back to like good form when you're doing stuff. I even know my roommate who was helping me out, especially after surgery, moving in. You know, I watch him and his, I'll say, technique when he, you know, lifts thing, and oh my God, you know, if I could save the world, just, you know, use your legs, use your form, hold in your stomach, because otherwise you might have a long bad road, like we have. Oh, and I just want to give a shout out to Stephen as well, who's joined us. Thank you again for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. So Paul, what was your diagnosis then?
Oh, at that point it was, yeah, you have a herniated disc. It's probably what's going on. Let's take an X-ray, and then, you know, here are some exercises. So I had, the symptoms were sciatica. It was going down my leg. I never felt anything like it. Of course, I thought it was a hamstring.
What herniation do you have? Like what disc is it?
Well, I have officially, after my MRI, a month post the acute injury, when I finally got rushed to the hospital, they gave me an MRI. It was L5S1 was the herniation, and L4, L5, that was a bulging disc. So that's what the MRI showed at that point.
Excuse me just for one moment. I've had just a little bit problem over here. So, Paul, tell me, what treatment have you tried?
Well, basically, I went to my neurosurgeon, who was recommended to me up in Boston. The good thing about living in the Boston area is we have fantastic medical care. So I trusted the doctors, and I went to the doctor. And after I had my MRI, so I had a little bit of pain, and then one day I decided that once again I was going to play through it. And then I had a humongous, painful injury, rushed to the hospital emergency room. They threw me on the gurney. I went to the MRI. They said this is basically what's going on. So post that, I went to a neurosurgeon, and he recommended, he'd said, listen, 80% of people will heal without surgery. You may be one of those. And I said, you got to put me under. You got to cut me open, whatever. So my plan at that point was to try to really think about surgery. But what he recommended was go get the epidural steroid injection. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny because I had an epidural myself, and I did not have anywhere near the success that you had. And I was just talking to my mom about you the other day. You've had 3 thus far. So give us the example from the first, the second, and the third, like as far as how did it help you?
Well, when I was in pain in the beginning, I was at 9, 10. And I know we don't, but if you're going to use that scale that everyone kind of uses, not sleeping 2 hours at a time, getting up in the middle of the night. I was on Oxy, doing all sorts of stuff, trying to move my body or whatever, but it was really painful no matter what it is, sitting, lying down, whatever. So I had, in mid-December, I had the first, and what would be called the the weakest of the cocktails for the epidural injection. And then the next day, I actually felt pretty good. I remember it was the first time I laughed in about a month. I was watching a comedy special, and I was laughing so much that I was crying because I was so happy that I was laughing. So,
oh my God, I completely understand that moment when you just for a moment when you feel like yourself, it's like hallelujah. Oh my God, I'm human again.
And I was by myself. I was in my room. You know, my kids were downstairs playing. It was Christmas time. There's snow on the ground, and here I am, like, you know, lying on my side with a pillow between my legs and laughing my butt off at this, you know, comedy special. So that was the first time I said, okay, this is actually working. And then from that point, I gave it another week, and then January 1st rolled around, and I joined the gym. I never went to a gym. I hadn't been to a gym in 10 years. I worked down on my basement. Like I said, I did all those other exercises. So finally, I went to a gym, and I got in the pool. And that's why I joined that gym. And in January, I swam 22 days out of the 31 days. So that's what I did.
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
I walked, and it was wintertime, so I couldn't walk outside. But, you know, and I did my core. And then the second injection was late January.
I don't want to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt you for a moment, Paul. I just saw I call her my surgery sister pop on here. Natalie just joined me. And let me explain Natalie. She and I had a laminectomy on the same day, almost at the same hour, 1 hour apart. And it's been really interesting to see our recovery together, because honestly, like, she was my go-to, like, oh, I feel terrible. Oh, I need this, or, you know, and so I really loved having Natalie around, because she is just an absolute doll. I absolutely love you. So thank you so much, Natalie, for stopping by. All right. So you were saying, and now on your second epidural, and what made you finally go in for that second epidural?
Well, I just want to back up and do one thing, is that I'm with the comments, I'm kind of reading them, but I'm also trying to stay in touch with you. So if I'm not answering a question directly, I apologize. I know some people have said that they'd come on in future episodes. I'd love it. And for those, if I haven't reacted yet, it's only because my team chat and things like that are not as easy to see as probably Rebecca. And I'm also a little bit more of a Luddite than Rebecca. So, so the second epidural injection was in late January, and I was still in pain a lot. I actually went away for a weekend in Montreal to a hockey tournament. I was coaching. I was not playing, but, you know, behind the bench. So that was a little rough with the travel, but I had one, and that helped a little bit. And what my pain management doctor had explained to me was each epidural injection, the cocktail is going to be a little bit stronger. So that second one was in late January, and that helped alleviate some pain at that point also, and get me moving.
So I didn't realize they have different levels of epidurals.
That's what he told me. And the third one,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he said if you get the third one, I don't know if it's because your body has to get used to it. Why they don't give you the strongest cocktail in the beginning, I don't know. But I don't know why they do the succession. But the third one, I remember he said, oh, this is going to be the strongest, and you're going to feel it when he injected it. He said, this is going to be, you know, could be the most painful, but it'll actually be the most effective. So, wow. And that third one really was. So,
and how long ago was this last one that you had?
Early March. Okay. So basically, what was that, 2.5 months ago? Is that correct? We're April, May, so 3 months. And the funny thing about it is, I talked to my chiropractor a couple of weeks ago. I am going to a chiro. I can talk a little bit about that. But I asked him, I said, you know, mentally, when I picture what's going on with the medicine and the epidural, he's like, it's gone. Paul, it's out of your system. It's gone. There's nothing there. So when people talk about, okay, is it wearing off? It only lasted for 3 months. He said it really doesn't last more than a couple of weeks. So what I did and what I recommended is, if you do feel pain-free from whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's epidural or whatever, use it as a window to move your body and strengthen your core and get things going for recovery and do all the right things.
I completely agree. I know when everything first started for me, which was back in September, I was actually preparing for Hurricane Irma. And of course, you know, I'm strong and I can do everything by myself. And obviously I was lifting a little too much. And that's really right after I was moving things and things like that, that I really started to feel bad. I did have some Toradol and some steroid shots just in the buttocks initially, and that helped tremendously. So you don't necessarily need to jump all the way into an epidural. You know, obviously try some of the more conservative methods first, because getting an epidural, I mean, that's, you know, that's a needle directly into your spine, and it's not fun while you're having it. That is for sure. That's the one thing I know for sure, is that it is not a fun experience. So obviously try, you know, the alternate methods first.
Okay. And John just said it's more volume, same concentration. So that might be the case. I wish I looked it up a little more. I wish I did a little more research. The funny thing is about the epidural is when my doctor explained it to me and I said, hey, you know, I'm on these forums online and I've talked to people, and some people it worked for, some people it didn't. He looked at me like I had 3 heads. Like, of course it's going to work. It's like if I gave you Tylenol for a headache, people will react differently. But the people that are in this office, it was seriously like a assembly line of people for this.
That's just so weird, because when I went to my doctor, and again, every doctor is different, and that's why I always say get a second opinion. In my case, I got 5 opinions, but the one who performed my epidural said it's a 30% chance that it would work. So I mean, you just got to try more, I guess, is the answer. But if you have someone and they have that success rate, I mean, that's unbelievable. And Natalie, I see the epidural didn't work for you either. Yeah, I mean, it's I did much worse after the epidural than I did before the epidural. And finally, it took me to the point of just being in just excruciating pain, like couldn't drive, couldn't work, couldn't do the things that I enjoy, like this kind of stuff. And it finally took a laminectomy for me to start feeling human again.
No, I totally agree. I think it's, and I think it has a lot to do with the doctor who performs it. I mean, to me, you know, people do react differently to to medicine, regardless, in recovery, and obviously injuries are different. The way that he had explained to me was that if I had a knee injury and I had an ACL tear, and he's like, no, it would work for that too. So he was very confused as to my question of why it wouldn't work. And he's had the question before, but he used a fluoroscope, and I don't know how some, you know, obviously levels of experience.
I don't know what that is.
I was under a camera and I could see it, and he showed me, and I looked at the thing going in, so I knew it was going in.
Oh my God. I don't even know if I would want to actually see it.
It wasn't fun, and I think I apologize. I ruined his Christmas because I yelled a very bad word at him when he put it in me, and I think I cursed at him because it was so horrible. But I think it has a lot to do with who performs it, and I think it has at least a percentage of it. I think that it's funny how, you know, I think that's also true of surgeons and pretty much any medical practitioner. PTs and chiropractors, but I really think the fluoroscope and the information that I did research on, that is a huge thing, because in a way, the way that I pictured is you're kind of playing pin the tail on the donkey to a little bit if you're not using the fluoroscope guides you in. So I think it would make sense that would be more effective.
So how long have you been dealing with this pain, and from what level from where it began to what level where you are now? Where are you at? As far as myself, from September, October, November, December, it was just progressively getting worse to a point where it was just a constant 10 for me. And now where am I at? I'm at like a 0.05. So I'm aware that maybe something happened there, but as far as like pain, I feel like an occasional pinching from time to time. And again, this is after surgery, because again, the other things the more conservative methods just didn't work for me. Where are you at now, Paul?
Well, sorry, and remind me your surgery date or how long?
I had a laminectomy, so a laminectomy discectomy. So essentially what they did was cut a little bit of bone out, cut the disc a little bit, and kind of pull out that nerve. The nerve should normally be a white color, but by the time I had surgery, it was fire engine red. I mean, it was really, really, really bad.
Oh, and I'm sorry, what was the date on that?
That was March 1st. That was March 1st.
All right. So like I said, November was the beginning. December was I'll fight through it. And then I had the acute, horrible injury. I want to say it was December 15th or so. And then that was basically the big one. And at this point, I think I'm at exactly where you're at, where I would never say, I don't know if I'm ever going to feel like I'm fully recovered, because I think it'll always be in the back of my mind and I think it's actually a good thing, because now mentally I'll be prepared. Every time I do something, go lift something, take out the laundry, the garbage.
Yeah, you just have to be like hyper aware of everything that you do now. And that's either whether you had surgery or didn't have surgery, but you really don't want to make it, worse. John, I see commenting down there, and you had mentioned that something makes you really nauseous. Was that the epidural, or what was making you really nauseous? We'll let him get back to it in a sec. So are you, so I know you did epidurals. Obviously you're doing physical therapy. Are you doing any additional treatment other than physical therapy now? And
I got signed off on physical therapy 6 weeks ago.
Oh, so, you got relieved or whatever. You graduated.
And it was so scary, because I was like, really? Because I still had pain at that time. And she said, there's nothing else I can teach you.
Right.
So I'm going to let you go. And I'm super proactive. I've always been into fitness and things like that. So I looked up everything and I said, I'm going to do my own stuff. And then when I brought exercises into PT, and she's like, oh my God, that's kind of the next level. You should be doing that eventually. It's good to work it. And so I'm, I kind of knew in a way, what was working, what wasn't working. So the sign off on PT was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. I'm still going 2 times a week to physical therapy. And then I'm also doing 2 times a week with a trainer, and then kind of like just walking and like general stuff outside of that. But I know for me, after surgery, my strength is just, I mean, it's the pits. I mean, I'm definitely stronger than where I was, say, a month or even 2 ago. But that strength, I'm just not at where I was prior to surgery. And that actually kind of brings me to the next question. What sort of things did you enjoy prior to surgery, as opposed to how you have to modify or not modify it now? Paul?
Okay. So John actually, so I said, yes, epidurals day after make him nauseous. And John, I agree. The epidurals, the day of was hell. The actual shot was hell. And then the night wasn't great. I had a flare up after all 3. It's just when it finally worked, it was all worth it. It was like taking the really bitter medicine. So I completely agree. And they do make, and all sorts of other reactions. People, of course, if they have cervical things, that you get headaches, and you're basically taking an injection in your body, so bodies react differently to it.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Natalie. Natalie has had a little bit of a rough road. As I was saying before, we're surgery sisters, so to speak, but I can't remember exactly what do you call it, the medical name, but she had some issues with her surgery. And I'm just reading her comment now. She says she says that she still gets some pain, and I'm sorry to hear that. That just breaks my heart. But I'm thrilled to hear that there's progress. I mean, everyone goes at a different speed. Everyone, we're all totally different, the way we manage our pain, the way we manage our treatments, and so on and so forth. But I'm really happy to hear that you're back in physical therapy and working, on improving and things like that, Natalie. So, seroma, that's what it was. So she had a seroma, and I think the way she explained it to me was that because they cut out a little bit of us, that like liquid essentially seeped into that area, causing it not to heal as fast. So she was having a really difficult time with that.
That's awful. I mean, I'm glad Natalie, I remember from you being on a couple of months ago, and I think the winter time too, starting this journey too. And it's great that you're going to PT, and that's helping a little bit. And sitting, it's one of the things that actually was a relief for me.
Oh, so, really? I was the complete opposite. Like I could not sit at all. Prior to surgery, I was literally clocking in 20,000 steps around my mother's kitchen island. I mean, it was so bad. I mean, I couldn't sit or lay down. I could just only be in motion. That's the only thing that helped. But you can only walk for so many hours a day, you know.
Sitting actually was a relief for me, you know, just normal straight up, and I got a little thing for my back. So when I hear that, I feel so bad for people who are in that situation, because at least I could work and sit down at my computer and do things or watch TV and be horizontal, you know, or sorry, vertical. But those who have to do things horizontally or walk all the time, I mean, I feel so bad for you that is the case. Obviously, I put ice packs in and things like that, but still, it wasn't that bad. It was actually a little bit of a relief.
So are you on any meds at all right now?
Nothing, not over. I've taken a leave, and I didn't take anything yesterday. So I'm trying, like, I'm on CBD oil, which was part of the plan. So yeah, and I don't know whether or not
it works.
It's one of those things where I threw it all in, and I, you know, every day, and I said, okay, this is, and it couldn't make me worse. Maybe it helped my mood, but between two multivitamins, fish oil, all the things I should be taking as an almost 50-year-old man. And I probably should have been taking fish oil my whole life, and multivitamins and turmeric and all these other things. But CBD oil was one of them, but I'm completely off. Right. I have leftover oxys for special occasions, just in case.
Oh my goodness. And I was on meds up until about, it was my 12-week, I have a crazy cat and she keeps spilling water, which is why I keep kind of disappearing. But I was on meds. I was on gabapentin right after surgery. I'm finally able to be off of that now. And I was actually terrified to get off of it for fear that some of that nerve pain would come back. But I'm happy to say that I am no longer on any meds. I don't even take Advil or nothing, absolutely nothing.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's good. And so Stephen said that, yeah, sitting provided relief seems a little rare. I know, and I feel blessed about that. I feel blessed about so many things in my recovery. One is the PT was fantastic. She's a superstar. Second was the epidurals working. And then, of course, the sitting, being able to, once again, work sitting up, you know, and be able to do that. It's just been kind of a blessing compared to what other people have gone through. And
are you modifying things that like, I know you're a big hockey player. Like, I know hockey is super important to you. Are you playing now? Are you playing with other people? Are you just practicing? What's your scoop on what you're doing with your most prized hobby?
I actually went this morning, and it was the longest that I skated. And basically, you can go to the rink and they have what's called up here stick practice, which means you can be little games going on. It's usually just, you know, people fooling around or whatever. It can get intense and it can get, you know, to where there's a full game going on. A lot of times it's just practice skating around. So right now I'm at an hour/hour and a half of training, a lot of just skating and, you know, puck movement and things like that, but nothing where I'm really going super aggressive, nor am I playing. And the thing about playing, just like any other sport, whether it was soccer or baseball, it's kind of, you get into the competitive mode and you might end up doing something stupid, like swinging the bat too hard, you know, in soccer, like kicking the ball too hard or twisting your body too much. So I'm really super cognizant and I'm taking a lot of breaks. So I'm out there for 3 to 4
Okay, so you're being smart about it. So you can still enjoy what you're doing. You just have to be smart about it.
That's kind of the I think everything that's the lesson in my life right now.
Right.
No matter what it is.
And to just always be cognizant and be aware of what you're doing. Like for me, for instance, when I'm at work, you know, if I have to grab something, I literally turn my entire body, then I squat down, then I pick it up. And I think about all those steps that I go through in order just to lift something, you know, easy up. There's no more twisting anymore. There's no more bending over, you know, causing those discs to pop out by bending. Like, I'm not doing any of that kind of stuff now. And hopefully, you know, knock on wood, that I'll remember to stay that way. So I'm hoping.
It's hard not to remember to do that now after this, because the one thing you never want to do is go back to where you were. And I think no matter what, yeah. So I've heard about the Varidesk. And I think that's, I've actually saw those commercials, and I think maybe that's the people who are up late at night, watching Breaking Bad at 1 o'clock in the morning who can't sleep.
Are you confessing?
I'm to watching that. Absolutely. And then I would, all these commercials of my back hurts and the pumps and things like that. I'm like, this must be the time of the day that people with injuries are watching TV because they can't sleep. So that's what pitch all those things for you. But I saw that and I thought it was a great idea also.
So do you think that within time that you'll be able to go back to who you were?
I think I'm almost there. And the funny thing is, I almost feel like I don't want to sound, this is a hard thing to say, but I don't want to sound like I'm saying this was a good thing. The one thing, if I'm going to make lemonade out of lemons, let's call it that, is that this has taught me that the things I was doing to myself were not healthy in so many ways, from mentally to physically, and the little things during the day. So I think I might actually be better. But now, does that mean I'm always fearful? Now, this morning I woke up with a little bit of, I have an achy back. My leg hurt a little bit. I had a little, I think it's from sleeping in a weird position. I don't know if I should change mattresses. But then I'll work out and feel great. After my skate and during my skate, I felt fantastic today. So I think there's a mental aspect to it, the physical aspect to it of being super careful.
I like John's comment here. It is a drag getting old, man. It so is a drag. But and that's the thing, even though we're in pain, just pretend like none of this pain and stuff happened. I mean, as we age anyway, we have to make changes in our lives. I mean, I think we're just a lot more aware of those changes that we need to make now.
Yeah. It's funny because I think that when I look at the people that are on the forums, and there's almost two kinds of people. They're the ones who are on their feet or working out and super active a lot. And they're the other ones who are a little more, sedentary. So,
but that's the thing. I don't think that, disc herniations or bulging discs or any spine issues whatsoever, I don't think that there's like an age group for that. I mean, I know, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It has no, it doesn't have a preference. Let's say that.
I know. And it can be an acute injury. It can be over time. And I think I have to remember to do this too, because I picture my MRI every day, several times a day. I think about the bulge coming out, the herniation, and I have to stop thinking about that because once again, although I believe that is the cause of the sciatica, because I saw that thing going, and once again, when people have surgery and they cut that off, as they did for you, sometimes the MRI and you look at people where they can cut cadavers open who are 45 years old, and 80% of them have a herniated disc. Why do some people get affected? Why do people not get affected? People got 5 herniated discs based on an MRI and never have pain their whole lives. So I think that is kind of the thing to remember and be cognizant of also, that, okay, whatever, my MRI could look completely different tomorrow. It could look exactly the same. The good news is I feel stronger and I feel better.
Right.
So that black cloud of thinking about it, I have to kind of push that away.
Right. So I gotta ask you though, do you regret anything? Knowing what you know now in life, do you have regrets for doing any of the treatments that you tried? Do you have regrets for how you lived? What are your regrets looking back?
My regrets were in the beginning, the month that I started to feel better and recover, I'm not going to blame the doctor, but I'm also going to say the diagnosis of a herniated disc kind of felt like, yeah, you'll probably heal. And this was my primary doctor. So taking care of myself and really doing the research and understanding what the issue was at that point, where I'm going to assume that it was really bulging at that point. And until I really had the acute injury in December, and my body was saying, you got to stop doing this. This is bad. You have sciatica. You can't play through it. I played through it, and then all hell broke loose. So those weeks, I wish I listened to my body. And
I am such a believer. And if you ask any of my friends or family, I always say, listen to your body, listen to your body, listen to your body. You have the answers inside you. And when something is wrong, and to ignore it is not the right thing to do. And to think that it's going to, you know, get better on its own, maybe not the right thing to do. I mean, always speak with a doctor, get medical advice, because, you know, as we age, we gotta listen better to ourselves.
And I don't know if if you watch videos of hockey players that talk about hockey players, and sometimes do these little things, hockey players compared to soccer players. I mean, it's kind of the culture that you play with an ACL, you play with a herniated disc, you play with blood dripping down your face. That's just the culture. And I think that's kind of, you know, and you play with the guys or whatever, nobody wants to feel old, everybody, you know, so I think I kind of do that all the time. And I never wanted to feel like I was getting old. Like age was never a factor. It was just a number with me. So
yeah,
smarter than that in your older age, you know, and listen to your body, as you're saying. That's 100% correct.
So Natalie, I'm curious if you're still watching. Do you have any regrets with everything that happened, you know, prior to surgery? Do you have any regrets about the treatments or things like that? What are your thoughts on this? And as far as while she gets back to us, as far as some tips, Paul, what are some of the tips that you have for managing pain? Oh man, I've seen that everywhere. You know, I haven't read that, but I do see that pop up a lot in the forums.
Yeah, and not only does Dr. McGill have great books, he also has podcasts. I'm a huge podcaster. I don't believe in listening to I'm a business guy, so I believe in listening to educational podcasts and business podcasts. So this book, Back Mechanics, is, for lack of a better word, the kind of the Bible. And I think whether or not you have you go through surgery or you don't, because if you do have surgery, it's as I think John or Stephen was saying, that it's kind of the whole basis of the exercises you should be doing, and then routines to make your body stronger, things that you could be doing differently, tying your sneakers, picking up the laundry, and how to do those things every day, you know, kind of movements. And then he's written other books that go further, like this one here, Ultimate Back Fitness and Performance. I don't get any of the proceeds or anything. I'm just saying that that shows different exercises. And all these exercises I'm doing at the gym now, a lot more core, but using cables, using ropes, using medicine balls.
So I just want to go back to Natalie for a second. And she says that she was in pain since May 2017 and kept thinking it would just go away. I went from an achy back to a terrible achy back to sciatica by October. So, I mean, yeah, it's unless you've been through sciatica before, no one would ever understand. And I don't know if this is true, but my mother actually told me that one of her doctor friends said that the Latin word for sciatica is screaming pain, which I would agree with that. It's definitely screaming pain.
I thought about that, but yes, that is probably 150% correct. Natalie, I think like you were in pain since May 2017, thinking it would go away. An achy back, terrible back, sciatica, and then what's wrong with me? And then why is it not? And you know, I kind of look back at that, and I was still doing the bad habits, even though my back said don't bend over the wrong way, things like that. And I knew I was doing some research, but it's amazing how many people have the story of I started feeling not so great. I had an achy back. I started having sciatica, and then this was the acute injury came later because I didn't listen to my body, or I didn't know enough to really listen to how bad this actually could be. And it's amazing that, once again, not blaming the medical profession, but the amount that you were kind of in the dark. If my doctor had said, dude, take 6 weeks off, please, I would have listened. But he was like, yeah, just, you know, take some Advil before you play hockey or whatever. I look back at them like, that's the worst advice I've ever heard. So it's amazing how many people start this progressively and then finally have that big acute injury. So, and then you look back on that and then you have your regrets. But if you didn't know any better and the only thing you ever had in your life was an achy back or a hurt shoulder or, you know, a sprained this or that, you think you get over it in 6 weeks.
Right. And as far as some extra tips, of course, Paul mentioned some of the great reading material, which I still have yet to read and need to read and will read. But I just want to remind everyone the beauty of ice. Ice is just a savior. And anytime you're feeling that sciatic pain, stick some ice on your back. And I'm telling you, within about 20 minutes time, it's going to help tremendously.
Yeah. And I'm going to recommend something too before I forget.
Yeah.
There's a guy on the forums, Dean Volk, Volk, and I want to say that his profession is chiropractic expertise, and he has a forum every once in a while, and he'll have 6 to 8 people on it at once. And I almost had a one-on-one with him because I was kind of towards the end. And a couple of things that he gave me for advice was when you're doing these exercises, for example, if you have sciatica on your left side, sometimes doing it on the right side, somehow it counterbalances is actually better for you. So, but if you look up Dean Volk, and he's super informative and great with his time, and has shown videos and has said he'll jump on the forum with you and answer questions. But if you can look back on some of his stuff and also look to his next forum or online webinar or whatever, he's a great guy to stay in touch with. But when I feel it in my left side, I start to do leg lifts on my right side, and it starts to ease the pain.
Wow, that's really incredible. Wow, that is something.
Like that down the road.
Well, I think we're going to be closing it up for the day. I just, if you guys are interested in seeing more discussions like this, please let me know. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Don't forget to subscribe to Rebecca Meyer too, and do check out Paul Santucci's YouTube channel as well, where he gives you some tips and some physical therapy exercises that you can do to strengthen your core. All right, guys, thank you again so much for stopping by, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.